Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker again, and today is the 17th day of November. It's my mother and brother's birthday. So I have an account from the Gospel of Matthew. This is a story about Jesus telling a parable, but for my purposes, it's not really about the parable. It's about what Jesus has to say about people's listening abilities. And so this is what the passage looks like. This is from Matthew 13. And he told them many things in parables, saying, "Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen." Then the disciples came and asked him, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" And he answered, "The reason I speak to them in parables is that," quote, "seeing they do not perceive, and hearing they do not listen, nor do they understand. With them indeed is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah that says, 'You will indeed listen but never understand, and you will indeed look but never perceive. For this people's heart has grown dull, and their ears are hard of hearing, and they have shut their eyes so that they might not look with their eyes, and listen with their ears, and understand with their heart, and turn, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they listen." I really enjoy watching the program Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr. I think my wife watches because of the focus on ancestry and genealogy. I watch it to see Dr. Gates, known as Skip to his friends, conduct his interviews with his program's subjects. Dr. Gates is an uncommonly good listener. It's great to watch him actively listen to his guest and pick up on his or her feelings. One of his recent guests commented on his listening skills. The guest said, "You're exceptionally generous with your time. You will spend minutes in silence as I struggle to take in what you are telling me about what my ancestor had to endure. You don't rush me. You let me take my time and yours to process what you're telling me." Obviously, the 1-hour TV program doesn't include Dr. Gates' long silences, but for this one particular guest, he referred to what Dr. Gates is willing to do to honor his guests' feelings. When things get overwhelming, Dr. Gates will end the interview and send his guest home to process difficult things. He refuses to rush things for the sake of the program's continuity. Jesus says, "Let anyone with ears listen." Well, we all have ears, so all of us listen, right? Well, not everybody with ears listens. It drives me crazy that politicians, for instance, not only in this latest round of campaigning, but for the last 20 years or so, will consent to do an interview. And the presumption is, at least from my point of view, the presumption is that an interviewer will ask questions and the candidate will answer the questions. But that's not what happens. The interviewer asks a question of the candidate, and then the candidate responds by stating one of his or her talking points. I've gotten kind of used to it. I don't yell at the TV screen anymore when a candidate fails to respond to anything related to the interviewer's question. The two of them aren't really having any sort of human conversation. They're just talking past each other. Nobody's listening. There's not even a pretense of any interchange of ideas. There's no attempt to understand what the other person is saying. I think it's a form of violence to hear a question from another and to pointedly ignore it in your reply. It communicates a lack of regard for this person who has asked something of you. He who has ears, Jesus says, let him hear. Almost everybody has ears, so the question is, do we use them? That is, if you can hear, then pay attention. Hear the words, and then process the words, digest their meaning, understand, and then respond. Proverbs says, to answer before listening, that is folly and shame. Jesus picks up a quote from Isaiah about how the Jews of Isaiah's time wouldn't really hear what Isaiah had to say. And Jesus explains to his disciples, the reason I speak to them, that is, the people that Jesus is talking to, the reason I speak to them in parables is that seeing they do not perceive, and hearing they do not listen, nor do they understand. With them indeed is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah that says, you will indeed listen, but never understand. And you will indeed look, but never perceive. For this people's heart has grown dull, and their ears are hard of hearing, and they have shut their eyes, so that they might not look with their eyes and listen with their ears and understand with their heart. So everyone with ears, use what's between those two ears and process what you hear. Understand and then respond. I ran across a short quote on the internet that speaks to this. It's from George Orwell. And George Orwell says the most terrible loneliness is not the kind that comes from being alone, but from being misunderstood. This is the loneliness of standing in a crowded room surrounded by people who do not see you, who do not hear you, who do not know the true essence of who you are. So, let anyone with ears listen. If we have the physical capability to hear what others say to us, we should pay attention. Your attention, that is, your effort to understand, is a great gift to those who take the time and make the effort to speak to us. But it's more than hearing the words. It's more than understanding the dictionary definition of all the words that are directed at us. We can get all of the words right and still miss the point, since we human beings seldom communicate information without adding a layer of feelings on top of the words. What Dr. Gates is so good at is listening well enough to understand the feelings. And on top of the words, these feelings are woven in and around the spoken word. And that's what's so exciting for me to see as something that's pretty rare. It's what human communication is really all about. We rarely speak just in order to simply transmit data, unless you're, who is it? It's not Dr. Spock, it's Data, the person whose name is Data on Star Trek. Most of us aren't like that. Most of us don't really speak just to transmit data. What's important is how we feel about that information. That's where the real communication happens. So it takes two people to really communicate as human beings. It takes a sender and a receiver. It's important to use words to convey not only what we think, but how we feel. But on the receiving end, those of us with ears can actively listen and work to understand. We can hear the words, but more than the words, we can empathize. We can understand the feelings and identify with them. They're not our feelings, they belong to the speaker, but we can understand. Blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. Now, God bless you. Thank you for your time to listen to this. If you find value here, I'd appreciate it if you pass it along. And take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Bye.